Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Open Mic here on my YouTube channel. This is the show where 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, we just kick back. We put all the other formal stuff aside, and all we do is live and interactive questions. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. Oh, I forgot to turn off the volume on my monitor. There we go. And I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. We're already off to a great start. And here's how today's show is going to go, guys. The audio and the video questions have not made a return today. There's a reason for that. The reason for that is we had something come up that we had to take care of. It's a good thing. It's a good thing, but something that came up that required our attention. So I was not able to gather all the video questions. Don't worry, I'll do a whole ton of the video questions tomorrow because you guys have been sending in the video questions. Those will be coming tomorrow. So we're just going to do all live questions today. Now, here's the 2 ways you can get live questions on. Number 1 is the guaranteed way to get your question on is to use Super Chat. That's also a great way to support the channel. So thank you to all you guys who use Super Chat. And number 2, I'm also today going to be going over to Twitter as well. So if you want to take your chance, now I can't guarantee that your question will get on if you use Twitter, but if you want to take a chance, you can tweet to me simply at John Campea. Fire off tweets to me at John Campea, and maybe you'll see your tweet jump on here at the same time. Now, while you guys are getting your questions put together there and getting ready to fire them off, here's the thing. So today, here's one of my big pet peeves about online YouTube viewers. One of my big pet peeves is when people comment on a video without watching the video. That is a pet peeve of mine because they make themselves look stupid because they say, well, point A. It's like, if you watch the video, point A is directly addressed in like the first 30 seconds. Like you can just tell that they haven't watched the video, right? So earlier this afternoon, I put up a video on the 2 scenarios that still exist that Marvel may not get back the X-Men and Fantastic Four. I mean, things look like they're heading that way for sure, but there are 2 scenarios that exist that Fox or that Disney does not get X-Men and Fantastic Four. So I put this editorial video together, spent a lot of time working on it, and put it out there. And it just drives me nuts because one of the things that I directly address in the video, and by the way, go check out the video, but one of the things that I directly address in the video is, hey, Fox can't sell these characters to anybody else or else they just revert back to Marvel. But here are 2 scenarios in which, even though that's the case, it could still happen that somebody else gets them, all right? And I've already had to deal with a couple of brain-dead idiots who, clearly didn't watch the video, like, John, this video is redundant because if they didn't sell them back to Marvel, they would just revert back to Marvel. And I'm like, oh, you idiot. Please don't comment and leave stupid comments before watching the video. If you want to watch the video and then disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. That's great. That's what we're here for. That's perfect. But oh my God, don't start leaving comments saying stupid shit if you're not even going to watch the video first to realize just how stupid your shit sounds. Anyway, so that's a little thing that happened earlier today that it's just such a pet peeve of mine, you know? It just bothers me, and it shouldn't bother me nearly as much. But oh my God, it never ceases. It never stops. No matter how often it happens, it's going to happen again tomorrow. And it's just the way of the world, I suppose. Maybe I just need to grow a thicker skin with it and not get bothered by it so much. But anyway, guys, once again, we are going to go over to the live Super Chats. And once again, for those of you who might just be jumping on now, we're also going to take questions via Twitter. Again, make sure you follow me on Twitter, by the way, guys. Just follow me on Twitter, simply at John Campea. Send on in your tweets to me there today. And we're going to have some time. We're going to get to both Super Chat and we're going to get some Twitter questions. So with that out of the way, let's get started with 1 or 2 Super Chat questions. Then we'll check out, see if there's anything on Twitter. All right. The first thing we're going to try here on Super Chat comes to us from Digato1, who writes, Alita Battle Angel just got pushed to December. Do you think they did that so they can fix her eyes since everyone complains about it? December is packed this year. No, I don't think anything as far as one little technical issue is why they would completely move a release date. I think there are much more bigger issues than that. I remember the movie, from when the trailer came out to when the movie was coming out, if all they wanted to do was fix her eyes, then they had enough time to do that already without moving release dates. They had plenty of time to do that if that's what they're going to do. The other thing that we need to keep in mind too about her eyes, and I've been talking about this with Black Panther, is that a lot of times, remember, these visual effects are made for a certain kind of projection. And quite often, visual effects don't quite look right on a television screen in a trailer as they do on the big screen in context in the movie. Because there's a fight scene, you see it in the trailer of Black Panther, for example, right? Between Black Panther and Killmonger, both in their Black Panther costumes. And in the commercial, it's really it looks really animated. And that, well, because they're fully animated CG characters, right? On the movie screen, it doesn't look nearly that bad. Like, you can still tell it's animated thing. Yes, you can still tell, but it's not nearly as egregious on the big screen as it was on the television screen. I think there is a possibility here that the eyes, but even the animation style and the design didn't work with me. But let's keep in mind that there is a possibility here that one of the reasons the eyes maybe didn't look so right was because, hey, it'll look different on the big screen. In a different projection format and all that kind of stuff, it will look the way it's supposed to look. So let's keep that in mind too. But no, I don't think they moved it just to fix the eyes, because they would have had enough time to fix that problem anyway without moving release dates. So I'm sure they've got some other reasons for doing it. All right, next one comes to us from Van Sensei, who writes, "It's Valentine's Day. Thoughts on Spike Jonze's Her?" It's good. I've always liked Her. Joaquin Phoenix, great in it. Scarlett Johansson, the voice. Some people thought maybe she'd get an Academy Award nomination for doing the voice. It's good. I'm one of those people that I wasn't doing backflips over it like some other people were, but I thought it was very good. Like, if I give it a thumbs up or a thumb down, I give it a thumbs up. I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite good. Not my go-to Valentine's Day, but then again, I think Valentine's Day is bullcrap. I think it's such a made-up holiday just for us to give monies to corporations. I really don't I'm not a big fan of Valentine's Day, but I'm still going to make dinner for my wife, because that is what you're supposed to do, guys. Okay, let's move on here. Asian movie enthusiast, very descriptive, writes, "Hey John, a while back I watched your Getting Started Online video, and it gave me some helpful tips on starting my YouTube channel. Thanks a lot." Well, thank you so much, Asian movie enthusiast. I'm glad that video was able to be of some help to you. It is getting, it's over 3 years old now, maybe getting close to 4 years old, that video. I am working on doing an updated version on it, but I'll let you guys know, I'm struggling right now with, do I do another video, another 2.5 hour video of tips and tricks and how to get started and some philosophies and all that kind of stuff on getting your own YouTube channel or blog or podcast going, all that kind of stuff. I've also been half toying around with the idea of putting it into a book and doing it as a book instead. Because if it's in a book, I could probably get a little bit more in depth and take more time with it and all that kind of stuff. So I'm struggling right now whether or not to do that follow-up either in a video or in a book form. So you guys let me know what you think would be good to have. But thank you again for sharing that, Asian movie enthusiast. I appreciate that. Okay, we'll go on next to John Salvi. And John Salvi writes, "What actor do you want to come out of retirement for just one more movie? I pick Sean Connery, Gene Hackman, or Rick Moranis." Well, I'm going to go with Rick Moranis. The reason being is Sean Connery and Gene Hackman have earned their retirement. They've earned it. They've done everything an actor could possibly do. And they're two of the best, most celebrated dudes. And do I really want them to come out and put themselves through, the 3-month process of being on set for 12 hours and shooting a movie and blah, 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 and then having to do a press tour and all? At their age and in their physical condition right now, I'd say let them enjoy their retirement. I say let them go. So, and I mean, who wouldn't love to see Rick Moranis make a return? Good Canadian kid, by the way, Rick Moranis. I would love to see Rick Moranis back. So that's just kind of, that's my thought on it. Okay, let's jump over and take a couple of questions from Twitter here. Let's see. Let's try this one. This one comes to us from EJ Tan 2461 writes, John, do you miss going to Blockbuster or Hollywood Video? Oh, those were good days, man. I do. I really do. Now, don't get me wrong. Today's system of just being able to jump on my Google Play Store and pick whatever movie I want to watch is the superior system. But yeah, man, I like me and a couple of buddies used to roommate together. And you guys remember Rodney, who's been on a number of my videos, and he used to work on the movie blog with me. He and I and about 3 or 4 other friends, we lived in this house together, and it's like 4 times a week. We'd trek down to the local video store, whether it was Rogers Video or whatever the video store that was close to us. And, picking out 4 or 5 movies because they always had the deal, like 5 for 5 days or 7 for 7 days, whatever. And we pick out a whole bunch of movies and bring them back and watch them. And the whole process of going through the store. It was also, dating was a big thing. Like a lot of you guys who are like 20 or younger now, you'll never know this. But for those of us who are like 25 or older, if you want to have a guaranteed fight with your girlfriend / wife / significant other, going to the video store and trying to pick out a movie was like one of the most torturous ordeals that you would ever go through as a couple. Going through it was a true test of how much stress your relationship could take trying to pick out a movie together. I remember I wrote this one article. This is back when I was still doing the movie blog. And I wrote this one article that I swear to God became one of the most popular, most visited articles I had ever written in the history of the movie blog. And it was simply on an article on, here's a guarantee way for you and your girlfriend to pick out a movie together. And it was a very simple thing. It was, you guys go into the movies, go into the store, the video shop, and one of you agree, and you take turns. One of you picks 4 titles. The other one of you gets to pick which one of those 4 titles you go home with. Then the next time you go, the other person picks out 4 titles, and then the other person gets to pick which one of those 4 titles you go home with. And the response to that article was great. People went crazy and said, me and my wife do that now, and it's so much better. But those of you guys who are like 21 and younger, you will never know the ordeal that it used to be. Because it sounds fun, right? Hey, let's go pick out a movie to watch, to hang in, That was, in that era, that was Netflix and chill. It was let's Blockbuster and chill. So you go to the store first, pick out the movie, go home, yada, yada, yada. But you still got to pick out the movie. And that was tough, man, when you're going with your significant other. And be thankful for those of you who are like 21 and younger, that it's something you'll never have to know and never have to deal with. Let's see. Let's try this one. Townwell Will writes, John, who is your favorite Stephen King villain? Personally, I'd have to go with, you already picked mine. I'd have to go with the Warden, Norton, or Captain Hadley from Shawshank. And of course, Captain Hadley, a lot of people forget, he's Clancy Brown, man. Like from Highlander, from like tons of other things. But no, the Warden to me of Shawshank Redemption is my all-time favorite Stephen King villain. Because he also epitomizes one of the things that I always say about what makes a really scary villain. And that's somebody, a bad guy, who thinks they're a good guy, but they're a bad guy, even though they think they're a good guy and they think they're doing what is right, but really they're, and that's kind of embodies the Warden. He was just a dick. I love that character. For all the, for being a villain, I love that character. I thought that character was great. Okay, let's see. Let's go back over now to the super chat questions. We've got a few more come in here. Sujith writes, hard to believe that The Dark Knight is turning 10 years old this year, and Nolan's filmography is only 10 movies long. Time for a John Campea top 10 Nolan movie list video. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Doing a top 10 list of Nolan films is not a bad idea. I mean, my Nolan list won't look like anybody else's. My favorite Christopher Nolan film is still Insomnia. I think Insomnia is my favorite Christopher Nolan film. And that's nobody's favorite Christopher Nolan film, but it is mine. I just thought Insomnia was amazing. But that's not a bad idea, ranking the Christopher Nolan things. But you're right, too. It is hard to believe that it has been 10 years since The Dark Knight. This year marks the 10th anniversary of The Dark Knight. Just crazy, man. Caden Staub writes, not film related, but RIP and prayers to everyone in Florida affected at the high school shooting today. Breaks my heart. Man, I didn't even know. I hadn't even heard about that. I've been so busy editing and crap today. I had not even heard of that. I'm just jumping over to CNN's website. Dear heavens. 16 dead in a Florida high school shooting. Well, I'm fighting back the urge to say some things I shouldn't say. So, I will just agree with you, Caden. Goodness gracious, all thoughts and well wishes to everybody down in Florida who's been affected by this, and that is just terrible. And since this is a movie show and not any other kind of show, I'm going to withhold the choice words I have about my thoughts and why stuff like this happens in this country. But thank you for bringing that up, and what a horrible thing. What a horrible thing. All right, man. All right, Folsom53 writes, what are your thoughts on the Metallica doc, Some Kind of Monster? Well, I mean, I haven't seen it. I mean, they've been talking about it for years. Let me just make sure here I'm absolutely thinking of the right one. Metallica, Some Kind of Monster. Just make sure I'm thinking of the right one. Oh, you're talking about the one that came out in like 2004. Sorry, there's been rumors and talk about a documentary, a new documentary coming out based around Metallica. So that's what I was thinking. Oh, wait, have we seen it yet? Wait a minute. Am I thinking of the right one? Some Kind of Monster. Okay, yes. Not a fan. I thought it was forgettable. I like Metallica's music. And I know a lot of people who absolutely love that thing. I was honestly not that big of a fan, to be honest with you. Chris Parker writes, on a technical level, what frustrates you the most when watching a movie? Bad ADR, choppy editing, cheap CGI. I'll tell you exactly what is my biggest pet peeve. A technical pet peeve. Okay, so, and I see this in television all the time. Actually, I see it in television more than in movies, but I still see it happen in movies. So, what happens is, they'll have two people talking together, right? One will be over the left shoulder, one camera will be over the right shoulder, and the cameras will cut back and forth, right? So they're talking to each other. And what do you mean by that? And then it cuts to the other person. Well, I mean, this is this. And it cuts to the other person. Or often the camera goes over the shoulder and it's behind their head. So you see this. Blah, 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 blah. Then it cuts over the other shoulder. So they're behind one person's head, looking at somebody's face here. And going blah, blah, blah. My biggest technical pet peeve is when, let's say, they cut to one person to kind of get a facial reaction. Like, so instead of having the camera on the person talking, they decide to cut to the camera angle of the person listening for different reasons, maybe to get a reaction or see how they're, like, yeah, mostly to get their reaction to what it is they're hearing, right? What drives me crazy, because you can totally pick this out sometimes, is when the person who's talking, like it's like this, so you can't really see the face, but you can still see their jawline and everything, right? I should probably pick up the mic so you can hear me. So you can't see my face, but you can still see the side of the jawline, and you're looking at this person's face over here, reacting, but you can tell that the person, the back of my head, I'm the person talking, that either you hear me talking, but you can tell my jaw isn't moving. So dialogue, but you can tell my jaw isn't moving, so you can tell that the actor isn't actually speaking and it's a bad edit. Or the actor is talking, so you can see their jaw moving, but then in the audio, the dialogue stops, but the actor's mouth is still moving. And and you see it in television all the time. You see, hold a second, guys. I gotta run to a quick commercial break. I'll be back in just 1 minute. For those of you who have followed me for any period of time, you guys know that I made the decision recently to leave the corporate overlords. I no longer wanted to work for corporations. I wanted to be an independent content creator. And the only way I've been able to do that is by the support of my Patreon supporters. So what I would like to do is to ask you guys who watch my shows, who spend any amount of time with me every single month, to consider going over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what exactly does it mean to be a Patreon supporter of mine? What does being a Patreon supporter do for helping to make sure that shows like this one and all the other shows I do here on my channel can actually be produced? And on top of that, what benefits are there to being a Patreon supporter? And maybe if you guys can check that out, if you decide you want to be one of my Patreon supporters, that would be awesome. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just happy that you guys have decided to be here today and be a fellow movie fan and join us in the conversation. So go and check out the website, see if you want to become a Patreon supporter. And now let's get back. All right, a special thank you to all of you guys who are Patreon supporters and make this channel happen. If you are thinking to yourself, man, that was kind of a sudden jump to a commercial break, it's because I am expecting a delivery, and if I don't answer the buzz, then they won't leave my package there. They'll walk away with my package and won't leave it there for me. So sorry about that. Had to run and go and take care of that. I feel so unprofessional. This is what happens when you do a live show by yourself and you don't have a technical crew to help you out. That used to happen at my last place where I was working. We'd do shows and like there would be a knock on the door and a delivery, but fortunately I had other staff that could then run and answer the door and bring in the delivery and all that kind of crap. But anyway, sorry about that. Okay, where were we? I have lost my place. Don't worry, guys. I'm just gone right off the rails today, guys. Sorry about that. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Anyway, so that's my big gripe with my big technical gripe with stuff like that. Okay, we'll move on now to Victor Von Doom writes, I hear you say you had to purchase CBS access to watch Star Wars Discovery. I'm from Australia and I get Star Trek Discovery, sorry. I get Star Trek on Netflix. How does that work? Well, your different countries will have different distribution deals. CBS All Access is not available in Australia, but they still want the world to watch it, so they make a distribution deal with Netflix, so Netflix airs it in your country, and they'll air it on Netflix in a bunch of other countries, and then maybe they air it on a different streaming service in other countries. But most countries will have their own distribution deals and unique deals, and because, CBS All Access isn't available everywhere in the world. So that's why they do different deals like that, and that's why you can watch it on Netflix, but I gotta get CBS All Access to watch it here, which is really frustrating. All right. Next question. KW Garrett 83 writes, why are you the only movie pundit doing live fun chats? Well, couple reasons. One, because I'm one of the only people stupid enough to do it. Look, not everybody can sit down without anybody else and just talk for a straight hour. I'm not good at much in life, but the few things I am good at, one of them is I'm able to communicate pretty well. And I remember some other well-known guys that I worked with even said to me, I can't do a solo video for an hour. I can't do a solo video for an hour. And I tell them, why not? Like, I do it all the time. It's like, yeah, that's fine, but I can't. So I don't know. Maybe people are just nervous about being caught with a question they're not prepared for. I'm usually pretty prepared, but I'm also a guy, like when a question comes in, you guys know this. If a question comes in, I don't know. I just go, meh, I don't know. Aren't you afraid that you'll look like you're not knowledgeable? It's like, dude, I can't know everything. Nobody expects me to know everything. So if a question comes in I don't know, why fake it? Just go, meh, I don't know. Look, you guys know I'm half dumb, so why would I be afraid of looking half dumb? Doesn't really matter. But I do have a lot of fun doing these things, and I'm glad you guys enjoy it. All right, Dante Redgrave writes, rewatch Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, love it, but I hate how MJ gets kidnapped in every film. Seems like a cheap/lazy plot device to me. Ever notice this? Dude, I actually made a video about this. Like, if you want visual evidence that Sam Raimi, this is one of the reasons why I don't think directors should stay on the same project for too long, on the same franchise for too long, because you start to lose your creative juice. And I feel like really super creative people like Sam Raimi need to constantly be challenging themselves with new projects. But not only is MJ kidnapped in every single one, she is kidnapped as bait for Spider-Man and dangled from a high place. I kid you not. Watch all 3 of those movies. In every one, she's kidnapped as bait for Spider-Man and dangled from a high place. All 3 movies, that happens. And yes, that is one of my big pet peeves about the trilogy. And I really like Spider-Man 1. I love Spider-Man 2, one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. Not a big fan of Spider-Man 3, but still a big fan of those movies. Okay. Folsom53 writes, favorite places to eat in San Diego? Thanks. Okay, well, here's the thing. I go to San Diego, obviously, every year for Comic-Con. But the wife and I, we also jump, about once a year, we'll jump into, sometimes 2 or 3 times a year. We'll just take a weekend and drive into San Diego and hang out for the weekend. Right down to the Gas Lamp is where I like to eat. And I can't remember the names of any of the places. I just know where they are. And, oh yeah, that's the place. Like, there's this one kind of like Western grill place. They've got ping pong tables and pool tables, and they serve like barbecue stuff on like flat tin platters, and it's great. And it's right in the Gas Lamp. I cannot remember the name of it. There's also this one place, I don't know the name of it, but it's like Grumpy Tom's or Grumpy Joe's, where it's got this big picture, anime picture of a guy like this, like really grumpy. It's got a good outdoor patio. Their food was actually really quite good. So I like that. Right across from the convention center, there's a seafood place, and I am not a seafood fan, like at all. I don't like seafood, but I've eaten seafood there and quite enjoyed it. So there's that. I like the Fox Sports Grill that's on the bottom floor of the Hilton Bayfront. So those are some of my favorite places to eat in San Diego. Michael Jackson writes, do you think there will be a Michael Jackson biopic? And if so, would you rather want a CG or makeup for his appearance? Well, no, not CG. That's dumb. I just get an actor and play the role. It doesn't have to look just like Michael Jackson to play him. Just play him. I don't know if there will be, because, I've talked about this in the past couple of years. The tricky thing about doing a Michael Jackson biopic is, how do you portray him? If you portray him positively, it's going to piss a lot of people off. If you portray him negatively, it's going to piss a lot of people off. Look, how much do you go into the controversy about his fascination with kids? And I'm not sitting here saying he was a pedophile. I'm not saying that, but that's a tricky thing to tackle in a movie. And if you can't because if you try to do a movie on Michael Jackson, just gloss over that, that's going to be pretty obvious. So I just don't know how you adequately tackle doing a biopic on Michael Jackson. Look, I'd be fascinated to see it. I just don't want to be the one to do it. If I was a filmmaker still, I would not be the one to want to do it. I'll go see what you're doing, but it's like a minefield trying to do a Michael Jackson biopic. And I think that's the only reason we haven't seen one done yet, really. And I think that's why it's going to be a real challenge for any studio, because you're tiptoeing through a minefield if you do that. And I think it's really, really tricky. Danko Clock writes, movies to watch on Valentine's Day with your partner/significant other. Again, to me, I don't care about Valentine's Day. I really, really don't. However, probably, some good rom-coms, I guess, are pretty good. 40-Year-Old Virgin is the greatest rom-com ever made. It's one of the top 2 best comedies, in my opinion, ever made. I love that movie. You know what? There's a good one. David Duchovny and Minnie Driver in a little movie called Return to Me. There's a scene, it's very funny and it's very fun, but it's also very emotional, very sad in some places, very uplifting in others. There's this scene in the movie with David Duchovny. If you've ever seen Return to Me, and I highly recommend it, it's a really solid movie. David Duchovny, Minnie Driver, called Return to Me. There's this scene in the movie that will choke you up. And it's in the first act of the film. And it's David Duchovny coming home from the hospital, and him and his wife have this dog. This is all in the first act of the movie. This isn't really a spoiler, because this is all in the first act of the film. This is all like in the setup of the movie, okay? Setting the groundwork for what the rest of the movie is really all about. But in the first couple of minutes of the film, they set up David Duchovny and his wife. They have a wonderful life together. They love each other. And they've got this dog. And this great golden retriever dog that loves him and loves his wife and will always wait for his wife to come in the door, blah, blah, blah. And there's this scene in this movie where they get into a car, they get hit by a drunk driver, and she dies. And David Duchovny gets home from the hospital, still with blood on his shirt, and the dog comes to greet him at the door, and the dog then just stays there looking at the door, waiting for his mom, waiting for Duchovny's wife to come in too. He just stands there staring at the door, and Duchovny's trying to tell him, boy, she's not coming. Boy, she's not coming. And finally, Duchovny breaks down. Oh my God, I'm getting choked up thinking about it. That poor dog looking for his mama. I mean, it will crumble you. It will crumble you. And it's the setup for what then everything that comes after that in the movie. And it's a beautiful movie. It's heartfelt. I think it's really super funny. Jim Belushi's in it as well. It's a great cast. Carol O'Connor, I think, was in it. Was it Carol O'Connor? I think so. Anyway, wonderful movie. I've talked far too much about it already, but check it out. It's called Return to Me. Check it out and enjoy it. Okay. N. Starks 007 writes, chances of future videos with you and Schnepp. It all depends. I mean, I'm not really, look, actually I responded to somebody on social media today that said to me, hey, John, with, that other company now laying off so many people, you should do more videos with those other people. And I said, well, look, number one, I don't have the money to hire other people. Number two, even if I did, what I'm not interested in doing is creating Collider 2.0. I'm not looking to do that. And the reality, Schnepp is still working for that company. They're a competing company. They see me as competition. They're not about to let anybody come over here and be on my show. So I think for the near future is probably pretty unlikely. My respect for Schnepp is through the roof as a filmmaker, as a commentator, all that kind of good stuff. Don't confuse those issues whatsoever. But the practical reality of it is it's probably pretty unlikely. Chris Warden writes, here's some straight up nerd talk. Personal bias aside, who wins if a Resurgent class Star Destroyer goes up against a Galaxy class Federation ship? Answer, whoever the writers say wins. I mean that's the thing. People ask me, hey John, who wins if what's a big, I don't know, Thor and not the Incredible Hulk. Who wins in a big fight between like Superman and Thor? Because Thor, some of his stuff is magic based, Superman's magic, blah, blah, blah. And like, it's always like whoever the writer says wins. That's simple. I mean, because you could say, who wins in a fight, Superman and Batman? Well, it's whoever the writer says wins, because it's been written that Batman wins and sometimes Superman wins. But I really can't go there because it all depends who is writing that fight decides to approach it. And so it's really, really tough to say. I don't know. I'll probably go with the Star Destroyer. Probably the Star Destroyer, because the Star Destroyer also carries like several fleets or several wings of TIE fighters that will just pick another capital ship apart. So I'll give the edge to the Star Destroyer. Manuel Fernandez writes, hey John, are you not worried that Columbus also directed Pixels and that he only wrote Gremlins and Goonies, especially since Joe Dante directed Gremlins and Richard Donner directed Goonies? No, as I mentioned in the video, I did a video about the fact that Chris Columbus has been brought on to direct Five Nights at Freddy's. Why did I blank on the name of the movie for a second? Has been brought on to direct Five Nights at Freddy's. In that video that I made specifically about that, I mentioned Pixels and say, look, every filmmaker has a blemish on their record. Every filmmaker who's made enough movies will have some. I mean, even Steven Spielberg made The Terminal, for heaven's sakes. That's not a big thing. And when you say he only wrote Gremlins and Goonies, oh, really? He only came up with the story and all the dialogue and all the settings? Is that all he did? And then handed it off to a director to execute the vision. But to say he only wrote it, oh, yeah. So the guy who actually created the characters, created the story, created the environment, laid out the narrative, created the 3-act structure, did all the dialogue between the characters, all the exposition. Is that all he did? So no, it does not worry me at all that all he did was write Gremlins or Goonies. That it doesn't worry. No, if anything, it reassures me that he knows how to tell those stories. And of course, he's then directed several films he's done a really good job directing. And then there's the crap fest that is Pixels. So, no, and especially if you look at like the job he did with the first couple of Harry Potter films, good gracious. So, no, Manuel, it does not concern me that he only wrote Goonies. I mean, no. Sujith wrote, would you like to see a dark Star Wars movie delving deep into the nature of the dark side? Nah. Nope, no interest in that. Maybe a primitive form of evil in the galaxy before the Sith? Nah. Because, look, no audience is really interested in a movie that is strictly about the villain. That's why they've never really given us a movie that is strictly about the villain. And whenever they do give us movies that they say is about the villain, really it's villains acting like good guys. But no, nope, not interested in that. I mean, you may be, and that's cool, but nah, that doesn't interest me, to be honest with you. Stevan Gonzalez writes, why don't you like Young Justice again? Is it because the characters are developed too well? Kidding aside, I do genuinely want to know. Well, look, I just think it's bad. I think it's very bad, and I think it's really childish and whatever. But look, that's just how it strikes me. I hate it when people ask me, John, you said you don't like this. Why don't you like this? Because it's like, well, now you're putting me in a position that no matter how I answer, it's going to sound like I'm trying to cut up your opinion. And I'm not. If you love Young Justice, that's awesome. I'm never going to try to talk you out of that. Not at all. But I watched it and I thought this is really silly and kind of dumb. And I don't think the characters are developed at all. And it comes across to me as really childish. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that's how it strikes me. If it strikes you totally different, that's great. Look, I often talk about this one anime series I love called Space Battleship Yamato, also known as Star Blazers. You may watch it and think, John, this is completely childish. Okay, cool. If it strikes you as childish, that's great. But it strikes me differently. And so if you're going to ask me, why don't I like it? Because that's how the show struck me. I tried about 4 or 5 episodes, and I just thought it was drivel. I'll be honest, I thought it was drivel. I find most of Marvel and DC's animated stuff drivel, to be honest with you. There's a few exceptions. Obviously, the Dark Knight Returns incarnation was really, really well done. I like Marvel's Doctor Strange animated movie. I thought that one was well done. But quite frankly, for the most part, I find both, and a lot of some of the older stuff from DC, like Mask of the Phantasm. Like if you want to go older, another exception would be Under the Red Hood. That's another exception, but I find 95% of all the animated stuff Disney and Marvel and DC put out are drivel. So it's just not my cup of tea, man. And if it is yours, awesome. I celebrate that. I'm never going to try to talk you out of it. I can just tell you that they just haven't worked for me. DAL Official writes, have you seen the new horror film, The Ritual, on Netflix? It's set in Sweden, where I'm from. If you haven't seen it, will you do so? I'll be honest with you, DAL. I never even heard of it. But I'm always down for checking out, especially new horror films that pop up on Netflix. So I have not seen it, but yes, I absolutely will check it out for sure. Let me know in the chat board, guys. When did that movie drop on it? Like, has it been around for a month? Has it been around for a year? Did it just come out this week? Let me know. I'm just curious because, like I said, I've never even heard of it. Anthony C. writes, do you have a fear of flying? If so, what's your remedy? I don't. Here's the thing. I'm terrified of flying. But it's not a fear of flying. I have a fear of heights. I have a crippling fear of heights. And I remember, here's a great example. I remember talking to the mom of one of the girls I was dating once. And she would say to me, well, are you nervous during landings? Like as the plane's doing its final approach, are you nervous then? And I said, no. Actually, no, that's my favorite part of the flight. Is coming in for a landing and the approach. That's my favorite part of the flight. And she said to me, very well intentioned, she goes, well, like 90% of air incidents happen during landing. So, I mean, really, that's the part you should be afraid of. And I said, no, you don't get it. I'm not afraid of flying. If the plane touched wheels down and then flipped over 15 times, I don't care. I'm on the ground. I'm worried about heights. And the reason I like the descent and landing part is because in the last 2 or 3 minutes before you land, every time I peek out the window, I'm a little bit closer to the ground now. And it makes me happy inside. And yes, I hate flying. I totally hate flying. I wish I didn't have this stupid, baby fear that I have of heights. But And the way I deal with it, if you sat beside me, you would never know I was afraid of flying. You would never know. I just try to keep myself, I try to think about other things. I try to distract myself. Quite often I fly Air Canada, and all Air Canada flights have the entertainment system in front of you so you can watch movies or TV shows. I bring my tablet or my laptop. Most of the flights these days have internet, so I just try to keep myself busy and distracted. And that is the best way I know how to deal with my fear of flying. And really, again, it's a fear of heights. Okay, let's go on to Brendan Haley's, who writes, who do you think would win in a dogfight? Kara Thrace / Starbuck versus Poe Dameron. Both are considered the finest pilots in their respective universes. I'll go Starbuck. I'll take Starbuck in her Viper over Poe. Tough fight, close fight, but I will take Starbuck in that fight. I think she's just more... Now, I've seen Poe in like two or three piloting things. I saw several seasons of Starbuck. So I will go with what I know more, which is Kara Thrace, aka Starbuck. I'll go Starbuck in that. I love any question that involves Battlestar Galactica. Good question. Caleb Lawrence writes, hey John, been loving the content since 2013. Thank you so much. Planning on becoming a Patreon next week. Oh, thank you so much. And by the way, it's pronounced Caleb. Wonderful, Caleb. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for watching me for so long. Even my own mother can't put up with me for that long. And thank you again for considering becoming a Patreon supporter. You're going to be one of the reasons why these shows even exist. Sujith writes, Star Wars is not that big of a phenomenon in India. As a matter of fact, The Last Jedi ran for only 1 week in theaters in my state. Could only watch The Last Jedi 2 times. Well, I mean, like, not every movie's going to be big everywhere. Like, even, what was some of my other favorite? Like, I'm sure even Avatar wasn't big everywhere. It's unfortunate, though, that some fans of whatever property, whether it's Star Wars or Star Trek or DCEU or MCU or whatever, I'm sure there are fans in certain countries where those properties aren't necessarily that big that have a very limited window of checking it out, or maybe don't even have the opportunity to check it out. So at least I'm glad you were able to get in there and see at least once, Sujit, or apparently twice. Rodrigo Ramirez writes, am I the only one wondering where Maz Kanata got lightsaber Luke lost in Empire? Oh no, we're all wondering about it. I'm sure they'll probably address it in one of the novels. I'm sure they'll address it in a novel. I mean, I understand them glossing over it in the movies because it's not essential for progression of the story. It's not an essential, like the story can progress without that piece of information. I just really want to know that piece of information, but the story can progress without it. So I understand them just kind of breezing by it. But I'm sure at some point, somewhere, someday, whether it's in a video game, in a comic book, or in one of the novels, they will address how Maz came about getting her hands on that lightsaber. Because even though I don't even think it's all that important, I really do want to know. I am very curious. I would like to know. So it'll be interesting to see how they address that. Just Plain Steve writes, have you ever met Stan Lee? Details. As a matter of fact, I have met Stan Lee on a couple of occasions. Actually, let me just click here for a second, see if I can pull this up easily enough. It should be over here. Click, click, click. And there it is. Okay, give me 1 second here. Yes, I have met Stan Lee on several occasions, as a matter of fact. Let me just see if I can, make this a little bit more viewable for you. Yeah, there he is. There's me and Stan hanging out. So this was the second or third time that I met Stan Lee. And it was at a party I was throwing at Comic-Con. I used to throw a party every year at Comic-Con. And this one year, Stan came a couple of times, but this one particular year, we were also presenting him with a fan award. And so he came and it was great. And I got to sit down in the cabana with him because the parties that I threw was on this rooftop bar that held like 500 people. And it had because it was rooftop, it had cabanas and stuff like that. I just got to sat down and chat with Stan Lee for a while. And then the presentation was a lot of fun. He came up again. I introduced him, handed over the award to him. He was great. I've had a chance to run into him a couple times at San Diego Comic-Con on a few occasions. I don't know if he remembered me every time I saw him again, but yeah, one of the great thrills of being in my job and having the job that I have is the fact that I got to meet and chat with Stan Lee a few times. That's been great. Okay, let's keep going on here. Sharon Aurora writes, Leftover super chat questions from yesterday. Oh, you know what, Sharana, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing that up. I completely forgot to do that. Give me 1 second here. This is the great thing about having a community, guys, is you guys are here to remind me of when I forget something. So where did my leftover questions? There they are. Okay, let me just bring this up here. All right, these are the leftover questions from yesterday. Thank you for reminding me. See, I'm just totally jarbled today, guys. Murray for us writes, hey, John, check out the new How It Should Have Ended on The Last Jedi. Let us know if you like it. It's really hilarious. Well, I mean, I find almost everything that How It Should Have Ended, all the How It Should Have Ended are really, really funny. I find that even when they're really picking and making fun of movies I love and stuff like that, I think they're hilarious. They're really well done. I haven't watched that one yet, but I will definitely check it out. I love their content, and I'll definitely check that out. KB2 writes, who's your favorite Spider-Man, Toby, Tom, or Andrew? Toby is my favorite Peter Parker. I think Andrew is my favorite Spider-Man. I think Tom is the best mix of the two. And I'm not just trying to be diplomatic. I mean, that's really how I think. And so if I had to just pick one to be in a new Spider-Man movie I'm doing tomorrow, probably Andrew Garfield, but he's probably getting too old for that. But I love Tom. I think Tom's great. I loved Toby when he was doing it. So that's a no-lose answer. Jeff Mullins writes, if DC doesn't make a Wonder Woman 2 movie, there will be female riots in the streets. It's just not an option at this point. Oh, sure it is. Yeah, it absolutely is. I think they're going to make a Wonder Woman 2. But you can absolutely reboot the universe and start again. It just give us a new Wonder Woman movie. And that settles that. Look, here's the thing. If your car is falling apart, it's rusty, the wheels are falling off, it's a death trap, the suspension's going to go any minute, the brakes fail half the time, blah, blah, blah. But man, I've got a great steering wheel. It's a great steering wheel. You don't say, no, I'm not going to trade in this car for a much better car just because you like your steering wheel. Yes, your steering wheel is great. Yes, your steering wheel does a great job for you. Yes, your steering wheel is wonderful. And yes, it's a shame that to get a better, faster, safer, much more efficient, much more effective car means having to trade in that steering wheel. That is a shame, but it's something you have to give up in order to upgrade your car. And you need to upgrade your car because your steering wheel isn't going to fix your car. That's how I look at the Wonder Woman situation with the DCEU. The DCEU, regardless of the fact that I have liked the movies, a lot of people haven't. And they've created a bit of a mess and all that kind of stuff. It's rusting. The wheels are falling off. You came out with Justice League and it ended up being the lowest grossing movie out of all your DCEU when it should have been competing with Avengers. But there's Wonder Woman. Yep, and Wonder Woman worked. If you saw my review, you know I liked Wonder Woman a hell of a lot. It worked. It won the critics over. It won the fans over. It was great. It's a great steering wheel. But it's a great steering wheel on a car that is falling apart. And you don't keep the car, even though it's falling apart, just so you can salvage the steering wheel. It's one of the things that unfortunately you have to let go with the rest of it and get a new one, just so overall you can have a better car. To sacrifice your car just to have a great steering wheel doesn't make much sense. And that's kind of how I feel about the whole situation with Wonder Woman and the MCU, or the DCU at this point, I should say. All right. Thank you so much for reminding me, Sharon, about that. I totally forgot. And now we got that caught up with. All right. We still got about 10 minutes here. Leonardo Fonseca writes, just saw Coco and I cried so much that my girlfriend asked me if I was gay. Did any movie make you really cry? I think the movie that made me tear up and weep the most was Life is Beautiful by Roberto Benigni. It's the Italian film, won a couple of Oscars. Roberto Benigni also directed the film and starred in it. That movie would crack stone. You could put a solid piece of granite, sit a giant slab of granite in a movie theater, play Life is Beautiful, and tears of water will come out of that stone granite. It is a devastatingly powerful ending, and you will weep and cry, and that's the one. I mean, I've cried at 3 or 4 movies, maybe 5, But the one I only like, just like, was Life is Beautiful. The one that really just full out made me cry was Life is Beautiful. Coco is a beautiful movie too, by the way. Bill Dozer MHK writes, realized something the other day. Nowhere in canon has it been said that Han Solo made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. Only that the Millennium Falcon did. Yes, but what was being implied, what is being implied to me is that Han's the one who did it. He's very protective of that. We saw that in The Force Awakens. Like, he's not all that protective because when she says the wrong number, 14, he gets very personally defensive about it, right? So to me, the implication is that he's the one who did it. But theoretically, I had this discussion with a friend of mine the other day. Theoretically, you're not wrong. Theoretically, he never said, I made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. I believe it is heavily implied in what he's saying, and I think The Force Awakens enforces that, but strictly by the letter of the law, if you will, by what he literally said, you could make an argument. You could make an argument. The Hollow Brawny just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Bill once again writes, the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. I know that wasn't Lucas's intention, but oh man, the possibilities of Han playing fast and loose with the truth. I mean, again, you're just reinforcing the argument. I think there is an argument to be made going off that. Again, I believe the heavy implication was that he's the one who did it. And again, in The Force Awakens, that scene when she says 14, he seems to get very personally defensive about it, which to me suggests it's something that's very personal and important to him, not just the ship. So that's why I believe that. But you're right, man. It does open up some possibilities. For sure it does. Jeremiah J. writes, hey, John, I just want you to know that there are probably lots of fans that share their opinions on how to run these movie vlogs. But as a reminder, we love your content and the quality of your content. Oh, thank you so much, Jeremiah. I really appreciate that because, I mean, look, part of the reality of this job, I've understood this ever since back in the movie blog days. By being on camera, you paint a target on yourself. By sharing your opinions with people, which is what my job is, I paint a target on myself. Because if I don't give the right opinions that somebody wants to hear, they'll talk crap about me. And they'll do whatever else their pathetic little loser lives do. And it's just something that I've had to learn to deal with ever since the movie blog days. It's a reality of it. I have to accept it. But in the midst of all that, it is really nice when people like yourself, go out of your way to say something nice. And thank you so much, man. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Jeremiah J. writes, also, as you run your new business, do you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk to continually grow your personal brand? Keep on bringing the filthy. I'll be honest with you. I've never heard of Gary's. You could probably tell since I couldn't pronounce his last name. I've never heard of him, but I am constantly looking at ways to improve myself as a business and whatever. So I'm going to look that guy up. I swear to God, as soon as the show's done, I'm going to look that guy up. Thank you for sharing that with me, Jeremiah. Anthony C. writes, would MCU be the same today if Disney didn't buy it? No. I'm sure it wouldn't be. Look, it's like the butterfly effect, right? I'm sure there's a lot of things that would make the MCU not the same today had this not happened in the past. Had they not promoted Kevin Feige to the role that he's in. Had they not gotten Robert Downey Jr. to play Tony Stark. Had they not gotten Jon Favreau to direct the first Iron Man. Had Disney not bought Marvel. There's a lot of different little things that if it happened differently in the past, the MCU today would be different. Maybe it would be better, maybe it would be worse, we don't know. But I think there's a lot of things in history that had it changed, it would have changed every sequential event that came after that, and we would be in a very different MCU today. And I definitely think Disney buying Marvel is one of the most formative events that happened to shape the MCU that we have today. The Halo Bunny writes, or Brawny writes, it's very different to say Bunny and Brawny. Oh my gosh, a whole ton of new super chats came in. Okay, you know what, guys? I got to cut off the super chat. I didn't know this many more came in. Got to cut it off now. I'm saying cut them off. I'm going to try to get through these last few ones here. Let's see. The Halo writes, just came back from Black Panther. Question, who's your favorite Death character? Mine is Death in the Swedish movie The Seventh Seal. Oh, I am Swedish. Favorite Death character? Well, there's Norm Macdonald, who plays Death in Family Guy. There's that. Favorite death character. You know what? Fair question, Halo Bronny, but it's something I'd have to sit around and think about for a while. And I don't have time to do that right now. But it's a very good question. It's a great question. I have to think about it. You guys talk amongst yourselves in the chat board. Who is your favorite representation of death? Entertainment Buddy writes, Valentine's Day and no news on Nightwing, or I miss. I'm not quite sure what it is you're asking, Entertainment Buddy. I'm not sure what Valentine's Day has to do with Nightwing. So yeah, maybe I'm missing something. Let me know what I'm missing, guys. KW Garrett 83 writes, let me try that again. Do you get recognized often in Burbank by fans? Oddly enough, yes. Someday I'll have Ann on the show with me, and I'll let her tell you some stories. But one of my favorite though, it happens quite often. I'll walk down the street, somebody will honk the horn away, because I like to walk everywhere I go in Burbank because everything's so close to where I live. People will honk their horn, pull over. It's definitely at the movie theater. It happens a lot at the movie theater. When I go to the AMC Burbank 16, every time. And I'm sure it's going to happen at Black Panther tomorrow night, because Ann and I are going to go to opening night again. Even though I've seen it a few times already, but I just can't wait to watch it again with a real audience. It's going to be great. The funniest one, though, Ann and I were out on a double date. And we go to, what's the name of the ice cream place? Stone Creamery or this Creamy Stonery or something like that. It's a popular franchise ice cream place. I'm forgetting the name. It's right beside the AMC Burbank 16. And so there's a lineup. It's a pretty popular place. And we're in line and we're hanging out, and there's 4 of us in line, and me, Ann, her friend and her husband are standing there. We're just chatting and talking. And literally the guy in front of us, I kid you not, the guy in front of us had his phone up like this as he was waiting in line. And he was literally watching the John Campea show on his phone as we were standing there. And the guy, my wife's friend's husband, tasked me. He's like, "Is that you?" And he's pointing on the phone, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And so then I tap the guy on the shoulder. I go, "That's a good looking dude." And the guy turns around and double takes back at me. And I had a good chance. But yeah, it does happen a lot around Burbank, like more than I would suspect it does, but it does, oddly enough. The Jasmine Illustrator writes, what a great name. Hi, John. I design a lot of creatures. What is your perfect movie monster? I don't know if I could really describe what my perfect movie monster is. Maybe I could just say what my favorite movie monster is. One of my all-time favorite movie monsters is the Rancor. The Rancor in Return of the Jedi. There's just something about that monster. It's alien, but not too alien. It's grim and menacing. And yet at the same time, you could see how the fat jailer dude was brokenhearted when it died. That was his puppy. Maybe. There's just something about that creature to me in its design and how it functioned that just makes it my all-time favorite movie monster. And if I sat down and thought about it a little bit more, maybe I'd come up with some other ones, but that one stands out on the top of my head. Van Rock Car Moore writes, give a few examples of why you called DiCaprio top 5. Because he's great. He convinces you of the character he plays every single time. He brings the right amount of power and energy without ever crossing that line into getting campy and whatnot. And he just knows how to make a scene. He knows how to create a scene. And he knows when to make his character as big a part of a scene without dominating the scene, unless that's what the character needs. Wolf of Wall Street's a great example of that. So all that and more is why I consider DiCaprio top 5. Haskell writes, hey, John, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Haskell. Did you see Metallica's other movie, Through the Never, starring Dane DeHaan? The on-stage footage shot in IMAX 3D, seen in IMAX 3D, was mind-blowing. I felt I was on stage. Yes, and I preferred that one a great deal. I remember when the marketing for that was out, and Dane DeHaan was in the marketing, we were like, well, what the hell is this? Then you saw it, and yes, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I certainly enjoyed it a lot more than the other one. But yeah, I enjoyed that one. My favorite, somebody asked me on the show a few weeks ago, what's my favorite music documentary? And my favorite to this day is still U2 Rattle and Hum. U2 Rattle and Hum, because there's some really, really cool things in there. Not just, first of all, the music's amazing in it. And the way they shot the stage, especially their concert at Red Rock, was just mind-blowing. I get chills every time I watch it. But also like them going to Graceland, and then them going, with them with B.B. King. And then like, it's so great and so powerful. I just love it so much. So that's why it's my favorite music documentary. Manuel Fernandez writes, better Tarantino villainous performance, Leonardo DiCaprio's Calvin Candy or Christoph Waltz's Hans Lada? Christoph Waltz's Hans Lada. Easily, Christoph Waltz. I really love DiCaprio's turn as Calvin Candy a lot. But I thought maybe even Sam Jackson's character was even more villainous than Calvin was in that movie, right? So I don't even know that DiCaprio's villain was the best villain in his own movie. And he's great. But to me, hands down, I mean, Hans Landa, the Jew Hunter, is probably top 10 greatest movie villains ever. Ever. It's just that good. So I'll go with that one. Charlie Zakari writes, I owe you the effing world. Really? You owe me the world? You may have single-handedly convinced my wife in moving back to Burbank. Consider me a Patreon supporter ASAP. Well, great. I don't know. Were you the one who asked the other day about what I like about living in Burbank? And I went on that big, long spiel about why I love living in Burbank. If I am, great. I'm glad I could help, and I'm glad your wife wants to move back here, man. So thanks for sharing that with me, dude. DAL writes, DAL official, I should say. Thoughts on Jason Momoa's Netflix show Frontier? I liked it, but I did not love it. No, I mean, I'll go so far as to say I certainly did not love it, but I liked it enough. I thought the villain was certainly interesting. I like Momoa as a performer, but the narrative just never hooked. You know what I mean? It never really just grabbed me and really brought me into it like a lot of other my favorite shows do. So I liked Frontier. If they do a second season, I don't even know if they're doing a second season or not. If they do, I'll check it out. But not one I'm running around to recommend to people. You know what I'm saying? Metal Gear Kieran writes, hey, John, big fan of your work. Thank you so much. Ever since the Man of Steel review, and also a fellow Patreon supporter. Oh, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Since you were doing game cutscene movie reviews, will you eventually do one on the Metal Gear Solid games? I think I will probably get around to doing it. Now, here's the thing. I mentioned this on my show this morning. Just because I've done 2 like this week, don't expect that I'm going to do like one every week. It might be another month till I do another one, but a lot of people have been asking me to do at least one of the Metal Gear Solid. I'm not going to do all of them, but I will probably at least do one of the Metal Gear Solid games. A lot of people have been requesting that one, so you can probably expect. I think the next one I'm going to do is probably Red Dead Redemption. That's one that's got the next amount of people asking me to do is Red Dead Redemption, but I think a Metal Gear Solid game will probably be not too far behind that. Thanks for bringing that up, man. Mr. J writes, hey, John, just want to say I don't know you personally, but have lots of respect for you and what you do to entertain us. Oh, thank you. You know what? It's my pleasure and my honor and my joy to get to do this with you guys every day. So thank you for being here and making it possible for me to do it. It means a lot to me, man. And thank you for sharing that. Rodrigo Trinidad writes, now that Activision Blizzard is taking steps towards a Call of Duty movie happening, do you think Activision Blizzard might start thinking of doing a StarCraft movie? Also, do you still play StarCraft 2, World of Warcraft? New expansion for World of Warcraft coming soon. Hype! You know what? About 6 months ago, I started playing World of Warcraft again, but it only lasted about 2 weeks, and then some things came around, like me starting up my new channel again, or starting up my channel again, and I dropped out of it. I will jump back into Warcraft. I'll jump on and play StarCraft StarCraft 2 every once in a while. I love StarCraft. StarCraft would make a great movie. There's a great underlying premise there for a movie with the whole various races and the history of the Terrans and all that kind of stuff. But it would be very, very, very expensive to do that movie. So I don't know. I honestly don't know if we'll ever see a StarCraft movie. I would love to see it, but it would be a huge gamble. Huge gamble. And I'm sure the fact that Warcraft didn't do as well as they were hoping it would do didn't help matters for a StarCraft movie either. Ben Rayner writes, what happened to Macaulay Culkin? He's still around. I mean, I don't really know everything. If I remember right, he got in some drug problems. He was typecast. But then he started popping up on that Gaffigan show, he started popping up on that. And I think he's popped up in a few other things. Other than that, I don't really know. I don't keep close tabs on Macaulay Culkin. Dennis Reyes writes, many fans asking for Cap's trad shield. I think you're talking about traditional. Cap's traditional shield instead of the Wakanda one. But in Spidey, Happy says they got a prototype for a new shield. Did fans forget? Well, we don't know the context of that, though. Right? We don't know. That was a passing comment. We don't know the context for that. So let's not read into it what canon is at this point. Remember, Cap's shield is still out there. He just left it with Tony. And I'm sure at some point Cap is getting his shield back. Of that, I have no doubt. I still don't understand why at the end of Civil War, which is one of the monumentally greatest comic book movies ever made, I still don't understand why Captain America left the shield with Tony. Like, the shield doesn't belong to you. My father made it. If I was Captain America, yeah, dumbass, he made it for me. And then I would have taken the shield and walked out of the room. I still don't understand why he left the shield behind. To me, that made no sense. I understand they're probably setting up some grand way that he's going to get the shield back in the near future, but I don't get why he left it behind in the first place, to be honest with you. Luna just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Luna. Last couple of questions here. I'm just going to fly through these really quick, guys. The Crone Doggy writes, over under 20% that people will stop asking, what about X good actor for Y role? You made your position on that very clear. Oh, under 20% that people will stop asking that. Under 20%. It will always happen, and I'm just going to have to keep giving the same answer all the time. Good observation, though, Crone Doggy. Luna sends in another super chat. Thank you. Ike does, too. Thank you so much, Ike O. Simon Greenway writes, is there an architect for non-film Star Wars canon? I'm not really sure what you're talking about. I mean, there is a group that is responsible for basically Star Wars canon, period. That like Pablo Hidalgo is a part of. You should follow Pablo Hidalgo on Twitter, by the way. And that stretches from the movies to the comics to novels and everything. He's kind of like a gatekeeper, I think. Him and Leland Chi are, I think, two of the main guys that kind of look after that. So that's probably who you're looking at. But then again, I'm not exactly sure that I'm reading your question correctly, but that's the best answer I can give. Start following Leland Chi and Pablo Hidalgo on Twitter, and I think you'll be glad that you did. Ike O writes, heard about the Peter Rabbit food allergy backlash. You know what? Here's the thing. I saw that some people were creating some kind of backlash about Peter Rabbit, and I didn't even bother reading about it. I just know that there was some kind of ridiculous backlash over something silly, and I didn't even read about it. So no, I've heard about it, but I didn't read into it, and I have no desire to read in it because it just sounds dumb. But it sounds like you think it's dumb too, Aiko. Luna Comics writes, as someone who plans on being a writer, how do you write exposition scenes and the audience needs them, but they hate them? Thoughts? Okay, Luna, appreciate it, but the best thing for you to do is look up articles on that, on the proper balance of exposition to to demonstrative stuff. Like, you know, especially in movies, you hear show the audience, don't tell the audience. You only tell the audience when you need to. When you don't absolutely have to tell, which is exposition, show them, let them see it. One of the greatest examples of this is in X-Men 2. And it's the scene when, I believe it's X-Men 2. Yes, it's X-Men 2. I'm almost positive it's X-Men 2. Or is it X-Men? Or is it? No, I'm almost positive it's X-Men 2. Yes, it's X-Men 2. It's when they go to Bobby's house. Remember the scene where they go to Iceman's house to see his family? And you had the other kid along with him. And I'm forgetting, the other kid's, he's got fire powers. And I'm forgetting the character's name. I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. Anyway. And there's this scene where they're standing around in Bobby's living room. And up on the wall is a family portrait of Bobby and his family. And everybody looks happy. And on the other kid's face, looking at the picture, there's a look on his face where you just know in a glance that this kid had a bad family experience, that his family experience growing up was nowhere near as good as what Bobby's was. And he is now envious of Bobby's family and the life that he's had growing up. And they never had to tell you that. You just saw it in one moment on a look on his face. That is a great example of understanding when a movie needs to show the audience something instead of telling them something. Finding that balance is vital. How do you find that balance? It's unique from story to story, so I really can't answer that question, nor am I the world's greatest writer, so I'm not the right guy to do it. The best thing to do is look online for articles about it. There are many, many, many good articles on that online, so that's the best place to go. I'm not the right guy to ask for that, but that X-Men 2 scene to me is the greatest example of showing instead of telling, and I think more filmmakers need to take a cue from that. Last two questions here. Have you seen Basketball with the South Park guys? I certainly have. I thought it was really funny. It's really funny. I haven't seen it in like 5 or 6 years. The poster I always thought was funny too. And Jim Carrey's ex-wife was the lead girl in that movie too, right? I'm pretty sure it was. Anyway, yes, really funny film. And final question of the day, Sal Monardo writes, I enjoy your videos. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Sal. I appreciate that. It's really kind of you to send that in to me. And with that, guys, we've gone a little bit over time, but I wanted to make sure we got through all the questions today. That will do it for today's installment of Mope and Mike. Thank you so much for being with me here today, guys, and talking movies with me and everybody else here. It's just one of the most fun things to do in the world. Don't forget, guys, if you're not a subscriber to my YouTube channel, click on the subscribe button. Also, guys, don't forget, sometimes even if you're a subscriber, you don't get the notifications of my new videos. Click that little bell button as well to make sure you get notifications. Click the thumbs up button. Help share this video around. Spread the good news about the videos. I, of course, will be back again tomorrow with the next episode of the John Campea Show. Make sure you come back and join me then. Go and check out that new video I put up earlier today on the reasons how X-Men and Fantastic Four may not end up back at the MCU and Marvel. Go check that out and let me know what you think. And that'll do it for me, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. My name is John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.